Welcome to the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Doby. Join Jason as he explores the many ways to unlock personal growth, mindfulness, and spiritual transformation. So now, please welcome the host of Transformative Pathways, Jason Doby.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Jason Doby, founder of Transformative Pathways Life Coaching. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our topic for today's episode is gratitude and self-love as daily medicine for the soul, with our guest, Chana Fallowfield, who is joining us today from Chilliwack, British Columbia. Chana is a passionate soul purpose and mindset coach, as well as a mental wellness advocate who has transformed her own struggles with anxiety and depression into a mission to support others. After years of battling silently, she found her way back to herself and now helps others build confidence, overcome limiting beliefs, and reconnect with their purpose. Gratitude and self-love have been foundational in her healing journey, and she brings a grounded, heart-centered approach to everything she shares, making deep, personal growth feel accessible and real. Chana, welcome to the show, my friend. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Wow, what an introduction. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so great to finally meet you. Yeah, we've been following each other on social media for a while, but this is our first time ever meeting.
Yeah.
Awesome. Via virtual. Yeah, so it's so great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us today from the beautiful British Columbia. I used to live in British Columbia probably about 13 years ago now, but it was amazing out there. But now I'm back in the Ontario grind, so I got to get back out there one day. But all right, Chana. So to start things off, I'd love to hear about your personal journey with anxiety and depression and how it led you to become a soul purpose and mindset coach.
That's such a great question. My personal journey. Well, my personal journey, I feel like everyone has such a unique journey with them as well. But coaching was actually something that I didn't actively go seeking for. It was something that found me. So when I overcame my anxiety and depression, it actually inspired me to help other people as well. I started out doing like a bunch of pro bono coaching, just, doing the best that I can and stuff. And then it helped me create a business. And then it kind of branched off from there. Um, and another thing, like, I don't see a lot of people like talking about this as well, but the transformation as well, like for us to become coaches and like accepting ourselves and evolving into that too, which is, it's a really cool gift I think that we get to share with other people. And I'm really thankful for that, and I'm thankful for the experiences and what I've learned through that. What was your personal journey with how you started becoming a coach and accepting that?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. So I was a chef. I was in the culinary industry for over 26 years. And I had huge battles with anxiety and depression. I used to have panic attacks all the time, and that's what kind of led me to my meditation practice. When I got sober for the first time about 12 years ago, that's when I went and got some help, and I started meditating. And I first started meditating to really help with my anxiety, because I would wake up in the morning having a panic attacks. Like we talked about this a few episodes ago with another guest I had, but it was so bad that I would be like, throwing up in the shower and throwing up before work and throwing up as I walked into work. And it was just constant state of stress and anxiety. And then I learned that, anxiety and depression is kind of like a wheel, like the anxiety causes depression, and it's all kind of linked together. So that was that was kind of how my healing journey kind of started, was to deal with that. And then through my meditation kind of became a spiritual practice over time. And that's how I kind of woke up and then realized there was more to life than what I was doing, hating my job and hating my life every day. And then that's what led me down more of a path to work with coaches and stuff. And the first coach I worked with a couple of years ago, I did a program called Living with Soul, and then through that is when I set the goal to to start my own coaching business, which was only a year ago. So
Oh, that's awesome. So you're just in the first kind of stages of doing your coaching business?
yeah. So I've only been in business for a year, and I just launched my 12. I just designed a 12-week program for men called The Journey Within, and I just launched my first round a couple weeks ago. So we're in week 2, which is pretty amazing.
Oh,
It's been amazing so far.
that's so cool. Like, what inspired you to start being like a coach and do programs and stuff? Like, how did you get into that?
Well, in being a chef, I think I, you know, I ended up being a chef, but I never really loved cooking. I loved my favorite parts of the job was what I'd say like organization and planning, problem solving were my strengths. I was a really good chef, but my heart just wasn't in it. But the thing I liked the most was mentoring my staff, and I used to always say that I wish I was like a guidance counselor because I love just kind of helping people with their problems. And then I had my own challenges with drugs and alcohol. Then when I got sober, I was kind of mentoring people a lot with that, and everyone would kind of come to me with that sort of stuff. And I was always an advocate for meditation and personal growth. They used to call me the chef guru because I was always talking about meditation and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I lost my train of thought there. And actually, if we want to get really kind of weird, I was at work one day. I had a spiritual awakening a couple of years ago, and then I really started listening to my intuition, and it got really, really strong. I ignored it for about 15 years, and I just kept pushing through because I was moving up in my career. I was making money. I was doing all the things that I thought was supposed to bring me happiness, but deep down I felt empty inside. And then I had a couple really powerful moments where my intuition was really strong. And then I decided one day that I was going to start following it. And then I left my job 2 years ago. I walked away from my career and I got a job in sales. So I'm still kind of in the industry. I sell seafood for a company now. So I still work with chefs, but I have weekends off, I have nights off. I'm able to see my family now, and that's allowed me to start this business. It allows me to do this podcast because when I worked in the kitchen, I never had a Saturday off in my life, so I'd never be able to be here doing this. And I had a moment one day where I got like a message and that told me I needed to be helping people, and that put me searching on a path for my life's purpose because I knew that deep down inside I needed to do something to be helping people, service to others. I read a lot of books. I read The Law of One, and that's where I learned about service to others, and that really resonated with me. And then I just kind of, stumbled upon working with this mentor, and then I didn't even know what coaching was, and I just thought, hey, that's cool. Maybe that's something I could do. I started it, and I also like got this thing about like starting a meditation group. So I started a meditation group in my area a couple years ago, and that's how I kind of started working with people. It was just like we would meet once a week and we do like a meditation and a discussion and stuff like that. So I really tried to get that going, but there wasn't a lot of people were interested, but it was really hard to get people to come out. But that was sort of my bridge. That's where I kind of like started learning how to post on social media and do all that sort of stuff, and did some online meetings. The first time like I ever used Zoom. Um, yeah, and then everything just kind of unfolded for me. I worked with a mentor, and then from that, I did a 12-week a group coaching program, Journey with Soul, that I talked about before, and that kind of inspired me to want to do my own thing. Because when I first started coaching, I was just kind of doing one-on-one coaching, but I really wanted to put a program together, something like more meaningful. Because one-on-one coaching is like, I don't know, I didn't feel like it was really making an impact with people because you get people that just want to have one session here or a couple sessions there, and you really have to work with someone for a period of time to actually make changes in your life or have an impact. So that's why I really wanted to make a program. So then I was originally designing a program for men and women, and then I had a couple of signs from the universe that led me in the direction that I should be working with men. So I'm open, I'm aware, and I decided to follow it and trust it. And there's a lot of spaces for for women out there, but there's not a lot of spaces for men, and not a lot of men are doing this work and having these conversations. So I thought that was really important. So I went for it. I started my program called The Journey Within, and it's all about, just trying to help guys that are feeling lost and disconnected in life, like where I was many years ago, and just going through the work and connecting with themselves and teaching them about meditation and awareness and all these things. There's a lot of different things that we go through, and my program is a one-on-one program. I plan on evolving to group as I get some more momentum in my business. But right now it's just one-on-one, and we have a group aspect as well as we have a group, like a Slack group. So all the guys in the group can kind of interact with each other and share. But yeah, I know I've just been rambling on here, but I don't know if I answered your question or not, but that's pretty much my whole life story. And that's what led me to today. And even this podcast is just it's an opportunity that came to me. One of the executive producers at Bold Brave TV reached out to me last year and asked me if I'd be interested in hosting my own show. And I've had the idea that I could do a podcast, but I never would have acted on it. Because I had so much fear and self-doubt and stuff holding me back. So I've worked through a lot, but I decided to go for it. And even people in my life kind of didn't believe that this podcast thing was real. They're like, "Why would they ask you to host a podcast out of all the people on the internet? Like, it's got to be a scam, So I went with it. I trusted my heart. I went with it, and we signed a deal for 24 episodes. So now we're on episode 17. It's been such a wild ride, but it's been amazing. Yeah, the last year of my life has just been incredible. And I'm excited. I'm excited for the future. I've never felt better in my life, and every week I just get better and better.
How did you know, like, in your heart to follow podcasting and jump at it?
It was one of those things, it's like I knew that opportunities were everywhere. I knew that the universe is going to throw things at me, and it's going to be things that I didn't even expect. And that's the one thing my mentor used to always say, like, what you want, what your idea of the future, what the universe has in store is going to be even greater than what you imagine. And it's not going to be the same sort of path that you think it's going to be. So I knew that this was an opportunity for me. It really made me get out of my comfort zone because I was terrified to do this. I've only been posting on social media for like a year, and I feel like I've finally gotten over my fear of that, of being seen and being judged, and to start by doing a live show. And honestly, the connections I've made already, I used to be afraid to talk to people, and now I'm connecting with people all over the world that are guests on my show. It's incredible. It's incredible. So yeah, I guess I just kind of felt it deep down inside that this was something that was meant to be for me. And I have some friends who are like light workers and stuff. And I remember what we were talking the one day, and I told them about the podcast that I was going to start it. And I remember my one friend who's like really into energy and Reiki and stuff. And he said, your spirit guides are really excited for the podcast. I can really feel the energy. And I was like, wow, okay. So that was another confirmation for me. And I was like, okay, this is something here. So we'll see where this goes. We'll see where this leads. But now, I used to always be so like wanting to know everything about my future, but now I'm just pretty open. I'm just trusting that whatever happens is going to happen. And I know as long as I just keep doing my best and keep going, that things are going to lead me where I need to go. So I'm open to whatever. I'm open to anything. Bring it on.
That's awesome that you faced your fear and just kept going with that too. And it's like a lot of people it's hard for them as well too. I relate so much with that too, as becoming a coach. It's, as much as we help other people and everything with overcoming their fears, but it's like the fears that we have to get over too, right? With
Exactly.
speaking or being on podcasts and stuff too. And like to have the opportunity as well to do this kind of thing is like such an amazing experience. And all the little things, they add up to the great, like bigger things later on too, right?
Exactly. And I think, there's a lot of coaches out there too. And if you want to be a coach and lead people down this path, then you have to have walked the path yourself, and you have to lead by example, and I see a lot of coaches out there that, will post things online and stuff, but they're not even like talking or showing their face. And you can see that there's something blocking them with that too. And, you can notice that and feel it in their energy. So I know no one's going to hire me if I have that energy and I'm feeling scared to talk online or whatever. So I think it's really important to lead by example and show people that I've been through it and I've come out the other side, because I think that's my greatest strength that I can bring to my clients is my own transformation in my life is the best thing on my resume, I think.
That's such a cool experience, and also like the way that we have such a privilege as well. I think that, just to be here and to have the privilege and the opportunity to, like create coaching or to help other people. I think it's such a great way to wake up. You know what I mean? Every day, to be thankful to do what we do and the kind of impact that we can see in other people, I think is a really incredible journey.
It's amazing. And honestly, even just finally starting my 12-week program, I've been working on this for 8 months. And, even though it started, it's still not finished. Like, the last 2 hours before this show, I was recording videos for my last couple modules. So I have 12 weeks of modules on an online learning portal. So while it's running, it's still not finished yet, but it's going to be finished in like the next couple weeks. But just to have this done and get this out there has made me feel so good, which tells me I'm on the right path. And it just gives me so much energy. And, just bringing this work to these guys and having my one-on-one sessions with them and seeing them interact with each other in the Slack group and hearing the feedback from them too. Because even still, I was a little bit, it's nerve-wracking starting a program, and you can help people as much as you want, but then when you have to ask people to pay you for it, that's another thing. It's like, oh, I don't think anyone's going to be able to pay me, but it's helped me get so much more confidence in myself and build my self-worth. And you know and I have a question for you. Like, what was your battle like with stress and anxiety in the past? What did that look like for you, and how did you overcome that?
Like for coaching or in like my
No,
personal
just in your
journey?
life. Yeah, just your personal journey with stress and anxiety and depression.
I think with the huge thing is recognizing my anxiety and turning it into excitement. So realizing that, it's there and I can see it. And instead of, like even being here and the first time for me being on live, instead of being like, oh my gosh, like I'm going to be live for the first time, I'm like, I could sit here and I could say I'm excited, like turn that kind of negative role more into a positive impact for myself. And then my mind just started to develop good things. Like I remember when I was in a really, really bad mental state, I'll never forget this, but I used to, I think a lot of us have went through it where we want to blame everyone else but ourselves too, right? So you're like, oh, why is this happening to me? You know what I mean? Like, why is my journey like this? Why can't I find my purpose? Stuff like that. And I remember one of my friends said to me, which is actually the path of how I started to become really grateful as well, is she's like, there's good people everywhere. You just have to look for them. And I remember just repeating that in my mind all the time, like there's good people everywhere. And then I started to branch off that, like there's good things everywhere. Anxiety is a good thing. Depression can be a good thing because it's leading me somewhere that I don't want to be into a path that I need to be. Right. So it was actually like a redirection all the time. It was redirecting me somewhere that I need to go. So I would just keep repeating in my head over and over again. And then all of a sudden, I would have good things start happening to me all the time. And I was like, wow, okay, like it's okay. Like I can walk into a store. I don't have to be scared of other people, right? Like we're all in this together. We're all experiencing life for the first time. And I just started to remind myself like of all the good things that could happen. And then all the good things just started attracting. And it was that easy just to switch your mind from, that negative mindset to just that positive mindset where it's actually something that is benefiting you.
That's amazing. Yeah, so
Yeah,
like the energy of anxiety, you're just transmuting that energy into excitement. And I've heard people talk about that.
exactly.
That's amazing. And I know we'll get into gratitude practice in a minute too, but I know from my own personal experience, like practicing gratitude, I did like a daily gratitude journal for 100 days where I wrote in it every morning and every night. And I noticed that I was seeing things everywhere like more positive and just noticing the positive more. Whereas before I would always notice the negative. And the expression like, "Oh, what's the worst that can happen?" Well, then I change that into what's the best that could happen. And everyone at work thought I was crazy because I'm like, what's the best that could happen? But
Hmm.
we're all just so like, it's so easy to be negative, but it's so difficult to be positive. And sometimes if you're the positive person, then people are like, what's wrong with that guy? Why is he acting like that? He must be on drugs or something. But I'm curious, like, what is your like personal gratitude practice looks like? Do you have like a daily practice that you do, or is there something that you recommend for your clients?
A really big thing that I preach a lot is affirmations. Like affirmations or meditation, like just even taking, like 5 or 10 minutes a day. Like if you're really stressed about something, you can sit there and just turn that negative into a positive. Where it's like, if you're, for example, you're walking in somewhere and you're nervous about something, you could say, it's a great opportunity, you know what I mean, to begin again. It's be a great opportunity to start again. It's a great opportunity. And just reprogramming your mind to kind of change that aspect more into like, affirmations and things to be thankful about instead
Mhm.
of focusing so much on, like you said before, like the worst that can happen. It's like, what's the best that can happen, right? I think it's a lot of the time just reprogramming your mind into a way of thinking more positive, which is really
Exactly.
cool.
You
Yeah.
know, and a lot of people say that our thoughts create our reality. So if our thoughts are creating our reality, then if you're being negative all the time, you're creating that reality whether you're aware of it or not. So why not turn that around? And reframing those negatives into a positive is a great way, is a great way to change your perspective and to change your daily life. Yeah, it's incredible.
I think we also came from a place, where, if you, some people didn't grow up in a, like positive environment. So it's also like unlearning those patterns or learning things that you've
Mhm.
taught from, yourself, your past, or like society, or like, whatever has happened to you and stuff. And it's like finding a way to make something like really great out of it. And a really big thing is like there's so much room for all of us to succeed and grow. Like there's, you know what I mean? There's enough money, there's enough success, there's enough, like positivity, there's enough mindset change, like there's so many things that you can do. And it's like you were saying before, again, with like just creating that space and looking for that as well and attracting more. It's such a really cool experience to overcome and to see more of.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like that analogy. I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but like if you are thinking about a white car, you're going to see white cars everywhere, whereas normally you wouldn't
Hmm.
notice them. It's the same thing. If you're thinking about positive things, you're going to see positive things everywhere. If you're thinking about negative things, you're going to notice the negative things everywhere. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Can you share a moment, like a personal moment, where gratitude shifted your perspective, like during a tough time or a difficult situation?
um a gratitude time.
Yeah, where practicing gratitude helps shift your perspective, like during a rough time.
Is I actually have a really interesting story, I think, with this, where I actually used to be someone who thought very negatively. Like
Hmm.
all my thoughts when I think, oh my gosh, like people are judging me, it was actually me judging myself. So I
Hmm.
remember I had to sit down and brainwash myself so much to believing that I could achieve anything. Where it's like when something was going on, I would sit there and say if I didn't feel like worthy or something, I would sit there and until I believed it myself and then it was my reality, I would keep doing it. So I would say like every single day, like, oh, I'm worthy, I can do this. And I would repeat it over and over again until my thoughts started searching for that instead of searching for the negative things that were happening as well. So I think that kind of like branched off into how I was thinking more positively and how I actually started to like practice the gratitude and stuff and bring it more into a reality is something that I noticed. What was something that you started that you branched off into?
Before I lose my train of thought, I was going to say that I think the hard thing for people when practicing like positive affirmations and stuff, it's hard for people to believe it. And I think that's like that's a hard thing that I had to do too, was like it's easy to say these things. You could write down your affirmations and say them every morning, but if you don't like fully believe it, I think that's the challenge that most people face. And I'm sorry, what was your question again?
No, I was gonna say, what was like how did you branch into, I guess you could say, believing in yourself? Like how did you fight that urge, to even become a coach or practice like gratitude every day? Like how did you switch your mindset? What was the big thing for you?
Yeah, I guess the big thing was kind of my spiritual awakening and just like trusting myself and my inner guidance system and going for it, even though it was terrifying. And there's one thing just to push through and do it, but you still have all that fear and you're still like paralyzed and do it. And then I guess one thing that I did was, because I'm really good at reframing, a negative thought to a positive thought. But then someone suggested to me once that you have to do more than just think. You need to feel it in your body and you need to transmute that energy. So I would like, instead of just reframing the thought, I would maybe like focus on where I felt that fear in my body and then kind of try to move it out or move it along like it's stuck energy or whatever. And another thing that kind of helped me was, I guess, kind of, I went and saw a therapist a while ago to talk about some stuff, and some inner child stuff came up because I was telling her about this and that. And she's like, that's your inner child stuff. So I'm like, okay. So then I really kind of got deep on some inner child work. And then whenever those things came up, I would kind of look at it and say, okay, what is that version of me trying to tell myself, or what is that version of me trying to keep me safe from? Because all that fear and all that stuff, it's just a version of you trying to keep you safe, based on your past experiences or whatever, something that happened when you were a kid. So I did a lot of practice with that, uh, just trying to kind of nurture the 7-year-old me or whatever, or the teenage me that was afraid. Or my therapist described it like this. She's like, picture you're driving a bus, and then something happens, and then a different version of you comes up and takes the wheel, and then they're driving the bus. And that really helped me like visualize it, because I'm like a really visual person. So I would visualize it like, okay, something happens, it triggers me, I'm not driving the bus anymore. The whatever 7-year-old version of me is driving the bus, and he's scared about something, because he doesn't want people to judge him or whatever it is. And then she said, if that was one of your kids that had one of those feelings, what would you do to them? And then so you'd pick them up and give them a hug or whatever. So I practiced that for a while, and I think that really helped me a lot. I would just kind of talk to that version of me and just say, it's okay, we don't need to be scared anymore, and just kind of work through that and just kind of feel through that. So that's kind of what I've been doing lately. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Did you find that you were maybe like living in the past a little bit instead of the present?
I'm not sure. I like to think that I'm pretty present and aware, but I think it's just triggering fears, and I had a lot of fears, and I still, they still come up a little bit, but I think it's like a fear of letting people down, a fear of judgment, a fear of being seen, a need to be seen. I have this a need for attention, but then I also fear being seen. I had this thing where I was afraid to talk to people for some reason, like people that I knew at my kid's bus stop. I go to my kid's bus stop and I'd be too like self-conscious to talk to my neighbors. Like I have this neighbor who's like my best buddy now, and he thought that I was the biggest asshole because I never talked to him for years. But now he just knows that I was like too shy or too self-conscious to talk to them. And I also had I used to smoke a lot of pot, and I think that really made my anxiety and stuff really, really, really bad, and would bring up a lot of stuff for me because, and I don't know why, and I tried to wonder why this happened, but I think also like back in the day when I was a kid, like pot wasn't legal like it is now. So whenever you're doing it, you always had to be hiding and afraid of getting caught and sneaking around and that sort of stuff too. So I don't know if that has something to do with it too, but definitely smoking pot was my greatest crutch. So getting rid of that out of my life was like the best thing I could ever do, because that was really holding me back, and it would bring up so much fear and so much anxiety and so much self-doubt and overthinking, and I wouldn't even talk to people. Whereas now, I'll walk down the street and I'll talk to anybody now. And
What was like your biggest fear with how you got over that? Like talking to people and when you were in that moment.
I just did it. I just kind of pushed through it. Like it went from making myself do it to just becoming part of me. And like one thing I used to do was just smile at people, and I started doing it fake smile and say hi. But now I can't not smile and say hi to someone, to the point where it's like, you go to the store or anything that I do, like, hey, how's your day? How are you today? And some people are just like taken aback. They're like, oh, you want to know how my day is? Because that person just talked to 100 people and not one person asked them or acknowledged them or said anything to them. Um, but yeah, just pushing through it. And then I don't know, the other thing is maybe just like a mindset shift and just believing in myself and being more confident in myself and not caring so much what other people think. I think for some reason my whole life I was always worried so much about what other people thought of me, it would hold me back from doing anything. Fear of making mistakes, fear of looking stupid, fear of being judged for whatever reason. But you know, not caring. I don't give a shit anymore what other people think of me, because I'm happy with myself and I'm confident in what I'm doing. And I think I used to search for external validation a lot, and now I'm at a point where I don't need that anymore. Like I know I'm enough in myself, and I don't need other people to tell me I did a good job to feel good about myself. So but it took me a long time to get here. We'll say it was a long journey, but
Did you notice that like you started building momentum, like going back to when you said that you would talk to people and say like, "Hey, how's your day?" Did you notice that like it kind of encouraged you the way that it made you feel to keep saying it to other people?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool though too, that you can also like build the confidence in yourself, like even seeing your own progress too, right? With, going from, like we have this idea as well that, we aren't like good enough or something like that, or like our self-worth and stuff that we've gone through, but even to see the progress in ourselves, and building the confidence and talking to other people and, like also like the way that you realize the impact and stuff that we may have on other people is really cool to see.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
you start like building it too from there. I think is really cool to even see like the journey in yourself, but like in other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And also another thing I just thought of too, it's like when you're, say if you're having a conversation with someone and you're like worried about what you're going to say, or like, say even right now, if I was like worried about what I was going to say to you and I was like, oh no, I got to like, what question am I going to ask next? Then I'm in that state and I'm not like in that state of flow. So like
Hmm.
when you don't have that, then you're actually like in your flow state, and then you can like tap into those those things like your intuition or those things from the universe or whatever just come into you. So like, um, when I first started this podcast, I was not in my flow state. I was so nervous. I would have questions written down because, oh, what if I don't know what to say? What if I look stupid? And then I'm not like present with my guest because I'm like, okay, what am I going to say next? I'm trying to think about the next thing. But I read this in a book that one of my mentors got me. I can't think of the name of it now, but it was very interesting the way they explained it. But just being and visualization helped me a lot too. So visualization has helped me a lot. Like when I go to bed, I visualize myself in situations and visualize it going good. For so long in my life, I used to visualize the worst case scenario in things, especially being a chef. Say if I had a high end wedding for these high profile people, I would like make myself sick over it because I'd visualize what are all the things that can go wrong and how can I prevent those things before it happens. So I was always kind of trained to think of the worst case scenario. But now what I do is I just visualize what's going to happen. Like I visualize myself sometimes on a stage speaking in front of people. I visualize me like doing the podcast. I visualize people signing up for my program. I visualize, all this kind of stuff. So I think that's really helped me a lot. And I find the best time to do that is like in the morning or right before I go to bed when my brain's in that, I don't know what it is, theta or whatever state it is a good time to sort of visualize and manifest.
Manifesting is a really, really cool topic. I was actually thinking about that as you're saying that. But do you notice that when you're doing the manifestations and such, like they're bringing you more into like your reality? Like, how do you do your sort of manifestations, or like, what is your opinion on that?
I'm not sure. Can you repeat that question again?
Yeah. Like, for like manifestation. Manifestation is so interesting. I'm kind of like learning a lot about manifestation, but you say that you're a very like visual person.
Mhm.
How do you like take your manifestations by visualizing and creating into like reality?
I'm not sure how I do it. I'm not sure. I just sort of visualize. You know, I'm not sure. I'm just going to say something that might be off. When I was a kid, I used to play hockey, and when my dad would drive me to hockey, he would tell me to like visualize myself like scoring a goal, visualize myself like how I wanted to play. Um, so that's kind of like what I do now, I guess. I just kind of visualize how I want it to be. And I don't know, how does that manifest? I guess it just manifests as how I'm showing up differently because I'm expecting a more positive outcome, or I'm not focused on the negative outcome. I'm focused on the positive outcome, or focused on the outcome that I want. And like there's a really cool thing too, and like they did this study with like athletes and say like um I'll use an example like basketball, like shooting three throws or whatever, two pointers. I don't know what it is. I don't watch sports, but people that just visualize shooting the basket versus people that were physically shooting the basket. And just from practicing during visualization, those people actually got better than the people that were doing it for real, which is just like mind blowing.
That's so interesting. I haven't heard that perspective before because like I've always heard the perspective of like taking the manifestations into like put it into action. You know what I mean? Where you're taking the manifestation like visually, and it's like everything that you're actually doing is something that you're like manifesting in your reality, which is really interesting because some people say they have like two different perspectives of manifestation, with one is in their mind and like one is in their actions, which I find so interesting that everyone has such a different opinion on
That
that.
is interesting. Yeah, manifestation's like a big buzzword right now, I feel like too. It's
Hmm.
like all over the internet. I'm almost like sick of hearing about manifestation. But yeah, tell me a little bit more about what you were talking about manifestation. Can you explain those two a little bit more? I don't think I quite understand that.
Like the visual and the action.
Yeah.
I think like some people, I don't even know how to fully explain it either. Like I'm actually learning about manifestation, but people will say, they'll have like a visual of, like what's going to happen next or something, but the way that it's not happening, the manifestation, is because you're not really like putting the action into what you're manifesting, if you know what I
Right.
mean.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but other people are saying the opposite, right? Where it's like the visual and not the action sort of play. But like I find it very interesting, so I'm wondering how people are making the reality without putting it into the action.
Yeah, I think it's going to be different for everyone, but yeah, that makes, and I think some people can manifest at different rates than other people. And I know
Mm-hmm.
a guy who was on I forget what episode it was, Andrew Rowe, a friend of mine, and he has this special ability where he can read people's frequencies. He can tap into your frequency and tell you what's blocking you, and then he can tune into some sort of higher power and tell you like what you need to do to manifest whatever you want. But he had this ability where he could manifest instantly, and he told us of this story where he would like think things and they would happen instantly. But like
Mm-hmm.
he tuned into like his God level consciousness or whatever. He had this crazy thing that happened to him through like doing drugs and all this stuff, and it started out like negatively, and then he kind of figured out what he was doing. But he would say he would like think something and then it would happen right in front of him, which is like crazy. But I think for most of us, our manifestation happens a lot slower. Like it doesn't happen like overnight, but then it could be different for different people. Like some people might have the ability to manifest something happening right away. And I think we all have like crazy special powers that we don't even know about. And we're just like at the beginning of like tapping into what we're actually capable of doing. But like, yeah, if you, that's, yeah, it's an interesting topic, manifestation. Like if you want something to happen, you have to like take some action towards it too. You can't just like sit back and wait for like all this stuff to come to you. You have to like take some sort of action, right? Like that's what you're talking about, like the action part and the
Mm-hmm.
manifestation. That is interesting. Very interesting. That could be another whole show topic all on its own.
It's really interesting.
What was the topic of the show anyways? I can't remember. Self-love and gratitude.
Self-love and gratitude, yeah.
I love how we're just all over the place here. And let's talk
Mm-hmm.
about self-love a little bit. Um, what is self-love to you, and like what does that look like, and how would you explain to somebody on how to like practice or cultivate self-love?
I think self-love is very just much the acceptance of yourself, right? And it's like if you can accept yourself, then other people can accept you as well, and you can accept all the opportunities that can come to you as well too, right? So I feel like, the more that we can love ourselves, the more that we can show up for ourselves, the more that we can show up for other people, and the more that we can, like, it'll play a huge role as well too, right? And where we are and our mindsets and how we like perceive the world and stuff too is, because if you don't love yourself, how are other people supposed to love you too as well? So I feel like
Exactly.
it's really important. Yeah, it's really important as well for us to show up for ourselves too. And it's like, in reality, do you want to also like live a life, where you have a negative mindset all the time? It's like there's so much room for all of us to, experience life. Like that's what it's for. And I feel like, even with anxiety and stuff that we're talking about before as well too, it's like you're missing out on life too, right? It's like there's so much opportunity, and it's like the things and the fears that are holding you back. And when you start to love yourself, you can actually move into things that you want to do, or you know what I mean, like a place that you want to be in your life as well. I think is really cool. What would you say is like the definition of self-love for yourself?
I think you nailed it there. And for me, I remember a point when I first got sober. I remember looking in the mirror one day and being like, I had no self love for myself, and I knew that something was missing, and I wasn't happy. And then and like I said, that's when I went and got some help and all this stuff. But I remember the day, a few years later, I remember the day when I looked in the mirror and I actually could say that I loved myself. And I think it's tied to like self-worth and like, you can love yourself. All this stuff is all tied together in the personal development world. But loving yourself, feeling worthy. I try to talk positively to myself, and I think positive self-talk is a good one too, because we're all so negative on ourselves all the time. I had a call with one of my clients the other day, and we were talking about that, and he's just like me, so hard on himself, so negative. And starting the program, he 2 weeks into the program, and he's getting all down on himself because he's looking at the work going like, oh man, my life is horrible, I'm not doing all this stuff. And I had to kind of talk him back out of that and just be like, man, you're doing great. Like, you're here, you're doing the work. Don't be so hard on yourself. But like, just little things, like at the end of the day, I used to practice like telling myself like, good job today, good job with that. Because not everyone's giving you a high five, because you have some people in your corner that are cheering you on, but most people are all in their own head and they're thinking about themselves, or they're just going to point out every little nitpicky thing that you should have did, or you could have did better. But when you can start talking to yourself with love and compassion, like the way you would speak to your best friend if they were feeling down. We'll talk to our friends that way. We would never talk to our friends the way that we speak to ourselves. Like, I'm an idiot, I shouldn't have done that, oh, I'm so stupid. But allowing yourself to make mistakes, allowing yourself to be human. And I think that's another thing, like being so afraid to make a mistake that you don't do anything or get out of your comfort zone because you're so afraid of making a mistake or someone's going to criticize you. But I think like having that self-love is like loving yourself so much and accepting yourself so much that you don't give a shit what anyone else thinks, because you don't need that stuff. And yeah, a big thing for me has just been kind of, you know, telling myself at the end of the day, or like, good job, or like, great job on this, or, you're doing great, or looking at yourself in the mirror. Like, when was the last time, everyone listening, when was the last time you looked at yourself in the mirror and said, I love you? And that sounds like a weird thing to do. And it's weird at first, but I would recommend that you do it every single day. I don't always remember to do it every single day, but I try to do it as much as I remember, and tell myself like I love you, and say it like 5 times or say it like 10 times. And I think like that's self-love, like self-acceptance, self-love, self-worth. um, yeah, I think it's really important. And I also think that actually having a goal or doing something that you really want to do, when you're working a job that you hate, and you hate everything about your life, and you're not really in alignment with with what your soul actually wants to do, or what your soul came here to do, then it's hard to have that self-love. So for me now, I think it's just like having that feeling, like I have that feeling inside me right now, like I'm happy, I'm warm inside, like I'm like my soul's jumping up and down inside, like I'm happy. And 5 years ago, I was dead inside, so I didn't have any self-love. So I think it's like it's all it's all connected, and finding something that you're passionate about, and working towards, and having a purpose, or having a reason to live, or to get up every day, to be excited about all those things. I used to just escape my life with drugs and alcohol and just go through the motions, and I had nothing, like there was nothing exciting. I was not excited about anything coming up the next day. I was dreading it, like, oh, I got to do this, oh, I got this thing coming up. But now I'm like absolutely excited and ecstatic for my future. It's like I wish I could go back in time and take back the last 40 years, because I'm like, man, I only have this many years of my life left. I know I'm going to live to like 100, I know, or even longer, but it's like, man, that's not enough time to like read all these books I want to read and do all the stuff I want to do. It's like, man, but we'll have to carry it over into the next lifetime. Keep the momentum
Did
going.
did you actually think, with everything that you experienced with your past and stuff too, that you missed out on a big part of your life too?
Um, Not really. No, I don't really have any feelings like that, really. It's, a
Mm.
lot of wasted time. I could have did this, could have did that. But on the other hand, like I wouldn't change anything, because everything I went through has made me the person I am today, and I wouldn't be that person if I didn't have all those experiences. And all those things were meant to be. you know Working as a chef for 26 years, it was a really hard job, and that made me the person I am today. It made me hardworking. It's helped me with being able to start my business and run a business, because I used to have to do budgeting and financial and hiring and all this stuff. And I'm able to do all the things I'm doing now because I have that work ethic, I have that drive, and all that experience that I have has just led me. If my life was all lollipops and rainbows and I didn't go through anything, I wouldn't be here doing this right now. So it's like, those things are hard, but like, and I try to tell people, and it's hard to like realize this till you're out on the other side of it, but all those things you go through in life is like, you have to go through those things to make you the person that you need to become. It's like, you know, a diamond is formed under pressure, right? You have to go through all that pressure to come out the diamond on the other side.
It's also a lot of the time where your character is built too. So
Yeah.
if you don't go through all these experiences and overcoming, like my philosophy kind of is like the biggest person that you have to face as well as yourself
Mhm.
too, right? The more that you can face yourself, the more that you can do as well. And I think that's everybody's kind of life path as well. And I'm a really big believer as well as like, like people are also mirrors and you can attract like the kind of things that will happen and stuff to you because of all the experiences that you're experiencing too, that will also lead you to where you need to be.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of people have a hard time. They want to make changes in their life and they're not happy, but they don't want to face themselves, and they don't want to go through that uncomfortable, you know, do those uncomfortable questions or do that work to kind of like look at themselves and be like, okay, it takes a lot of courage for someone to go within and face yourself and change what you don't like. But that's what you have to do if you want to turn your life around, because you can't, without facing yourself, you can't go forward, I don't think. So I think that's like the biggest problem I see with people that I talk to. So
It's like also believing in yourself too, to know that you can do the next thing too, right? Or it's like even having the courage to fail and not, you know what I mean, be really good at, like self-love and stuff and gratitude and everything like at first, but then eventually like evolving into that and, accepting yourself as who you are and being the person that you want to be, I think is a really cool journey that we can all experience together.
yeah, absolutely. And I think as like young kids, we're taught that like failure is bad, and like, I think that's something that they teach in school. And like, my oldest daughter, she's like so afraid to fail at things. Like she doesn't even want to like take a test. She was like afraid to do a swim test the other day because she did the swim test at the pool and she failed it. And now she doesn't ever want to go swimming again. She doesn't want to do a swim test again. And she's just so terrified to like fail. And I think that's like one thing that our school system, maybe, the way that we teach kids in school, it's all by like grades and marks, and if you get a good mark you're good, and if you get a bad mark you're bad. And I think that's, one thing that holds us back. But you know being able to fail, and I was afraid of failure my whole life. I held myself back from so many things because I was afraid to fail. If I couldn't do it perfectly, I wasn't doing it. And that's like, when I started this and started my social media journey, it was messy. But I just did it. You just did it anyways. And once you decide that, okay, I'm going to go for it, then you just go for it. But I think, yeah, the fear of failure is really big in people. I think that's a really big one. And I was talking to my kids today, my little ones. I have twins. I have three daughters. My twins are 7, and we were talking about failure. But their teacher told them that, you have to fail. And one of my daughters said that. She's like, "Oh, it's good to fail because then you get better." I'm like, "Yes." And it was a proud moment. I'm like, "Yes." I like to kind of drill these things into my kids' heads right now because they're so young. So trying to brainwash them in a good way.
I love that they're teaching that as well in school for kids to, fail, and also like you're teaching your kids that. So, like we change the world by us too as well, and like the example that we lead. And if we can teach other people, as well, that it's okay to fail and it's okay to like learn and stuff, it's more and more people are going to evolve and be where they want to be too, and have the courage to fail. Like you have to have a lot of courage to fail too and be where you want to go.
Exactly. And once you realize that the most successful people in the world, they had to fail a million times before they got to where they are. Everyone always thinks like, oh, that guy's so lucky, or that person's like so lucky, look what they accomplished. But even the best athletes in the world, they failed a million times before they won the championship or whatever. But that's not a way I ever looked at things until recently. And I'm 40 years old. If I would have known that when I was 5 years old, then my life would have been totally different. But it's all good. I'm happy where I am now, and everything's all good. All right, Chana. Well, we're getting near the end of our time here. I kind of lost track of time here. So that was great. That went by fast. But before we wrap things up, do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners? Is there anything that we didn't cover today that you'd like to add?
I just think that, there's enough room for all of us to grow, and there's enough room for all of us to succeed in our fails, like we talked about. And if there's any important messages and stuff for anyone to learn from, hopefully people can learn from our experiences of failing and stuff too, and moving forward. And we're all beginners and we're all in this life together.
I love that. We're all beginners.
Yeah.
Beginner's mind. I love that. Amazing. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
I have like Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and Facebook.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think we have your link tree in the show notes below. So if anyone wants to connect with you, connect with Chana on social media, you can click the link below to her link tree, which will bring you to all of her social media and all of her stuff. Amazing. That was great, Chana. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
That was great. Thank you. All right. And as always, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Instagram at transformative_pathways, and also on TikTok at Jason_Doby. You can also find my link tree in the show notes below, where you'll have access to all my social media, my email list, and my private community. And if this episode sparks something in you and you're feeling called to explore your own inner growth on a deeper level, I invite you to check out the Journey Within, my 12-week coaching program designed to help you break free from stress, self-doubt, and feeling stuck so you can live life with more confidence, clarity, and purpose. Simply go to jasondoby.com or click the link below for more details. And if you enjoyed today's episode, we'd love it if you could like, subscribe, and follow us on your favorite listening platform. And if you'd like to support the show, we'd be so grateful if you could take a moment to leave a review. It would mean so much to us and also helps the show reach more listeners. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.
This has been the Transformative Pathways Podcast with your host, Jason Doby. Tune in each week for more insights, inspiring stories, and transformative journeys. Until then, keep exploring the path to keep your best self. Saturdays, 3 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.